The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast NH. This is a podcast designed by writers for writers on the journey to being published. Joined Mandra Biscornet.
It was so healthy and nutritious.
Deborah Monk.
Can we open each podcast with a dance number?
Shelly Devlin.
It was so full of inspiration and sparkles.
Every Tuesday morning live on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to catch the podcast anytime on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. It's time to be inspired, feel empowered, and be well with the Writer's Block Podcast NH.
And welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast. I'm Mandra.
I'm Debbie.
And I'm Shelly. Thank you for joining us at the Writer's Block, where our mission is to inspire, empower, and to help people be well. Today we're going to look at memoir writing and what happens when you start sort of digging around in the dark corners of your mind. It's almost like lifting the cover on Pandora's box to see what secrets might be revealed, what things might be exposed, and really take a look at what that brings up for the writer and ways that we can take care of ourselves through that process. Because it is quite a journey. Because basically, here's the thing. You can't just write what happened, right? You can't just say this happened. I thought you could. I tried really hard just to kind of give the order of events, the plot points. But you're actually going to have to write about how you felt about that. And so we're going to talk about what that has been like for us and ways that we can help people through it. So
let's do that.
Who wants to start? Mandra, not only are people, what we feel when we kind of open Pandora's box, everybody's had things happen to them in their life. But if they talk about a divorce or they talk about cancer, that's easy, that's talked about freely. Mm-hmm. But when you talk about abuse or neglect or things like that, then people start to cringe and they want to put that lid back on. Right. So when you rip that lid off, you're ripping it off for healing. We've read manuscripts from others that they weren't ready to heal. They just wanted to stay in that pain and they weren't ready to get to the other side. Right. And creating a story, you need to get to the other side. I wrote a piece about a funeral that I attended in celebration. And 99% of the people there were there to mourn, and I was there to celebrate. And I celebrate the death of this person. Right. I gave you guys 2 pages on attending this funeral that I thought was amazing, and you told me to go back and write it in 10 pages because you needed to be there with me to understand why that funeral was a celebration. Right. I told you why, but you didn't feel like you weren't right there with me.
You told us. You didn't show us, and you didn't tell us really how you felt about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To say I feel celebratory going to this funeral, why? We want to know why. What does that mean? How does that feel?
Well, I told you why.
You told
us. But I didn't bring you through the entire story.
Right. But what was it like when we sent you back and said, you have to do more work here?
Oh, well, I remember. I ripped the lid off. Mm-hmm. I came back to you. I gave you the 10 pages. And Mandra, in your beautiful social working voice, you took a pause, you took a breath, you leaned on your elbow and you said, "How are you?"
Oh,
and I was like,
"That's why we love Mandra."
I was expecting you to say, you don't
do more.
Qualify for these benefits. But that's just been my experience with social workers.
I love it. I said, you guys put me back to a place that I had put the lid on.
Yeah.
And it was tough, and I needed to make sure that I had the time. I couldn't do an hour before I went to work every day.
Right.
No, I needed to make sure I set myself up with the time.
Before, during, and after.
Yes, to really immerse yourself in that story for it to come out.
Right. Because when you're unpacking trauma or unpacking some painful things, you need to be able to recover and then get back into your life. So you couldn't do it, in the car or a few minutes before work or anything like that. You needed to set it aside where you could really dive in and be in that place that was kind of scary and then be able to get back out of it, recoup, and go about your day and still be able to function. And I think that's what we all found at different stages of writing this memoir. And that's what people sometimes like, oh, I had this happen to me and I'm going to write about it. And they don't realize that they're just opening up a can of worms that they haven't looked at in years. And they might not be able to get that lid back on without some help. So you have to be mindful of what you might be stirring up.
And one of the things about writing is it does have that cathartic nature to it, right? You're opening up those wounds, but really it could be you're only opening up the wounds to yourself. You don't have to publish that. It doesn't have to be read by anyone.
Sure. You could open Pandora's box in the therapy office.
I grew up literally in the ghettos of Haverhill, Massachusetts, and I played basketball every day. Did I have a vision that I was going to be an NBA basketball player? Of course I did. It didn't happen, and I knew that it really, in the end, I wasn't going to be a professional basketball player, but it didn't stop me from playing basketball. So knowing in your heart of hearts that you may not want something published, or you may not be a qualified enough writer to be interesting enough for someone to publish it. Still write it.
Still write it, absolutely, because there's so much benefit that can come. And like you said, a cathartic nature for writing, journaling. We use it a lot in counseling. I think when we had Mike here, we talked about just the power of writing your story, whether anybody reads it or not. But you have to be aware that things are going to be brought up for you. And then hopefully if you can move through it, it does have that therapeutic aspect. If, like our friend, if you get stuck there, then that's when it becomes a problem, because that's when it's hard to move forward with your life.
That's the same thing. What is the point? The point is that is one of my stories that I knew would be in my book because I wanted to catapult people past that. I wanted to give them inspiration to say, it doesn't matter where you've come from or what's happened to you, as how high the bar is set for your life. You can set the bar how high you want. Some of those things just get swept into that Pandora's box and put the lid on, and it keeps you down.
Yeah.
And I wanted to inspire people to move forward.
Right. So my experience with this was I had a line in one of my first drafts that you both read that I said something like, so I was going to meet Brad at the hospital after a yearly checkup with my oncologist.
Yeah,
and
one sentence.
Yeah, not even a sentence. I just happened to throw the word in there. And they were like, so you're going to have to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the red pen said, what?
Yeah.
Exclamation point.
And I said, no, this is about Brad's heart transplant. This is not about me. I don't need to go there. I don't need to talk about that. That was easy. I'm over it, blah, blah, blah. And you two held me to that and said, no, you're going to have to write about it. And not only do you have to tell us what happened, you're going to have to look at how you felt about it. So I had to go back to that place, and I thought this will be easy. Of course, I know what happened. And I realized that when I wrote about me being diagnosed with cancer and my treatment, I hadn't processed how I felt about it.
Even Mandra.
At all.
Who's...
Oh my God, I get the violins. That's awful.
That was funny.
Awful. I'm literally, I can't even talk about this right now. I was literally sitting at my dining room table writing this chapter with like the tears coming down, and now my vision's blurry. I'm still typing away, and I was so mad at you two because it had been in a nice, safe place for me, but you forced me to work
and your
through
book was about Brad, but it's called Just Another Love Story, which means it's about both of you.
Yes.
Your soul can only handle so much. It only has so much storage, and it needs to be purged from time to time. And sometimes you can purge it with a good cry.
Yep.
And sometimes you've got to just put it down on paper. Again, nobody ever has to read it except for you. You can put it on paper and keep it to yourself forever.
Yes. But people will read this now.
Right.
People
Lots
will read
and lots
all
of
of
people.
ours.
I wasn't talking to you, man. People are reading
People have
that.
already read it. But yeah, it was unexpected. And I think that's part of the point too. You might start writing about things that you think you've got this and you've done your work and you've moved past it. But you might find that you really haven't, and that you're going to be doing some more exploring when you start writing.
And Deb, we were mean to you too, weren't we?
Well, no, not really. But part of it is, I think sometimes you not only you may be writing and need to protect other people, or you may believe you may choose to protect other people. Mm-hmm. So the first time that I wrote my story, the beginning of it is this, kind of a fairy tale love story. And then that ended. And I wanted to protect the people that were still in my life. And so I just said, Matt, you read 9 chapters on this wonderful love story through this ballroom dancing world. And then I say, sort of in a paragraph, well, our life fell apart. But I didn't want to go into the details.
Right.
Because I wanted to protect, him, and I wanted to protect my daughter because she didn't know. She was still pretty young and she didn't know a lot of what had happened. And I really didn't need her to know. But then as time has passed, he has moved on and she now knows a lot of what happened. And so you really can't say your life falls apart.
And not tell us.
Yeah,
right.
we needed the details. We needed to be in it with you.
And it isn't because you need the inflammatory details.
No,
it's about, it doesn't matter. My editor came back, there were a couple of stories in it where I had said some things that were a little bit shocking, a little bit inflammatory. I used certain stories. And he said, well, if you're going to say this about your brother, I think the line was the closest I've ever come to being raped is by my brother. And he said, and that was just a paragraph, a story. He said, well, if you're going to say that, you have to go into more detail. And I thought, but that isn't the point. What I was trying to show is my family's message was always not protect the victim, but protect the abuser. Mm-hmm. Well, so I was easily able to go back and pick a better story that would give that
would illustrate that message better.
Right. And so you get to pick and choose what you want to tell. And like you said, Shelly, there are going to be people who want to be in your book.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are going to be people who don't want to be in your book.
I have people lining up because they hear I'm writing this book, and they're going to be pissed off that they're not actually in the first book. I have to keep saying, I'm going to keep writing. Don't worry. You'll be in book like 5, 6, 7.
Think
I have 30 years of stories here.
Oh, my goodness. That's funny.
So
it's not always the people that could be hurt, and it's deciding whether we even care. You care because that was a close-knit circle, for your people, but you still needed to tell the story.
Right.
And that's important that we have concerns about how others will feel if we include them. Is it an invasion of their privacy? Do they disagree with how we're representing the facts? And that's a real concern, especially when you still have these people in your life. I think it's hilarious that you have people that could be angry because they're not right in the book.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, the only one I care about is my daughter. Well, and Jonathan. I told Jonathan he could read it. And
Jonathan.
I care. He's in it. Of course he's in it. But I told him that he could read it if he wanted to before I put it out. And I did. I told Sophie. Do you want to know what Sophie said? So Sophie, I'm writing this memoir, and before I put it out, since you're in it, you can, you're more than welcome to read it. And if there's anything in there that makes you uncomfortable, you can take it out. And she said, Mom, I don't need to read it. Okay, Sophie, why? She said, because when anybody reads it, your story, they're going to call social services on you anyway. And I thought, what the heck does that mean? Like, do you think I abused you? And I'm going to be, and she said, no, because they're going to see how you're so in love with me that it's creepy.
I love her sense of humor.
I know, I do too. I do adore that kid.
So what things can we have in place? We touched on this a little bit, but what things can we do or have in place so that when we are writing, we can take good care of ourselves?
I think you need to make a therapy appointment.
If you have a good therapist.
You have a good therapist. I have one in case you need
one. I know
one.
you do. I've asked for her number twice, but I haven't called her yet.
You need to have a lifeline.
You need a lifeline. You
Yep.
need a lifeline. You need a safe place and enough time to immerse yourself in the story.
I think
so you're not rushing it.
The time is important. If you're, you also might want to alternate between a negative story, a positive story, a negative place, a positive place. So it's not all, don't do all like the hard stuff on the same few days. Maybe mix it up a little bit so that you have those breaks.
That's true. I think you actually gave me that advice.
I think she did.
I think she did.
Yeah.
That was good of me.
I think she did. Next time, why don't you write about something happy?
That would be good advice for Shelly. That would not be good advice for me.
Why? You need to get in there and stay in there?
Walking away, if it's tough, sometimes walking away is a good idea, and I totally agree with that. But a lot of times, at least for me,
you don't want to go
when
back.
It gets on. Yeah, of course you don't want to go back, right? And plus, you go away. What you do is you build up some scabs over the wound, and then you either have to keep them there or rip them off again. And I'm thinking, I'd just rather cleanse that growth. But a lot of times for me, it's when I'm getting uncomfortable, that's when it's starting to get good. And for me, it's sitting in it and just letting it go and knowing that you can edit. That, you know, if you can just let it come out as ugly as it is, however that is, and then edit later. Don't try to edit while I'm doing it.
Are we finished?
Wow.
Jonathan, we're boring him, apparently.
Is that it?
There's been so much talk
About feelings.
feelings and emotions.
Jonathan, you were working on your memoir, and you said that you were definitely having feelings.
I deny that.
Oh, he's not going
It was
to admit
bringing
that.
up some stuff, and
Mandra, what do you
didn't
have
like
to
it?
say to Mr. Jonathan? Dr. Mandra has some advice.
No, I'm sure it brought up stuff. I think that's the point. Everybody needs to. Here we go.
Delve
Here's
into
the
their
violin.
soul and purge.
Yes, and what I've learned, if it's going to be a good memoir, you're going to have to do that. You can't just tell the facts.
No,
I
definitely.
was told I had a prescription pad, and I just wrote the
Yes.
facts. That's what I was told.
We used to call her Mandra Prescription Pad
Yes.
before she was our Keep It Real girl.
Right.
It certainly, starting to write it, I didn't realize some of the things that I really had brushed under the carpet. I kind of
Pandora's box.
I dealt with maybe 1 or 2 points out of 10, and the other stuff starts bubbling up, and I started getting depressed, and I had to put it away for a little while.
Yeah.
Do you have the sound of a chicken?
Oh, wow. Good one, Deb.
You're not funny. You suck.
I need my own soundtrack.
Well, I
doing
do
your own
think it
soundtrack.
might be time to do our walk, to do our project update. So we'll take a little walk around the neighborhood. And Shell, why don't we start with you?
So I realized as I was planning my update today that I forgot to tell you guys something.
Oh.
Call a lifeline, when you're writing a memoir and there's something tough, or make a therapy appointment. So I
Yes.
do have the best therapist, Dr. Pat.
Okay.
And ironically, she sent me a text last week that said, I have a client that needs to write a memoir and it would be very healing. Can I give her your information?
Wow.
That's pretty cool, huh?
When was the last time you saw Dr. Pat?
It's been
10
See,
minutes.
I'm going against. Yeah, I just came from there. No, I'm going against all my advice that I give everybody. But it's probably been 2 months now.
Okay,
I
just
try to get to
wanted
see
a
her,
rough idea.
Once a month, just to kind of throw it out there, see what's going on. But she knows all about my memoir, and she knows about the writer's block, and
Yeah.
she knows all of that. So she sent me a message. I thought it was a great little referral, and.
You're getting referrals from
know.
Dr.
I'm getting
Pat.
referrals from Dr. Pat.
Fabulous.
How fun is that?
That's
Has she
really
reached
fun.
out to you yet?
She has not reached out yet.
Do you have any idea what her book's about?
I do not.
Interesting.
But I'm assuming it's something that I have talked about
Interesting.
to make
right,
the connection
right.
and knowing about the writing.
Yeah.
So she might be a hairdresser,
Well, there's a lot more to my book, Jonathan. You
facial
will read
piercer.
it.
Facial piercer.
Facial piercer. Tattoo artist. Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. Bartender.
Deb?
Let's see. So I mentioned that little handmade book that I'm working on, The Wings and a Tail. It's only basically, it's a very small book, but you guys have really helped me. One of the things Mandra did was she read it out loud to me this week, which really helped because I got to see where the rhythm of the story was working, where it wasn't working. And I am just waiting now because I've made my own coil binding, but I discovered making my own really is I'm a little bit crooked, a little bit offset. So I've ordered some coil bindings. I'm actually going to be binding the book myself. It's so exciting because our world is so technology based. To have something so tactile and so handmade, I'm very excited
I
about
think this book is amazing. I have to admit, before we read it last week, when you said it was made on seed paper, I was imagining the paper that has pressed flowers into it.
Yeah.
I wasn't imagining it was actual paper that you would plant this book and it would grow flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the most incredible thing. Has anyone ever done that?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Well,
on
seriously.
paper that you
She's
can.
making
Did you
this-
not know this?
No, she's making this in our house, and we never ever talk about her projects ever.
Except on the writer's block.
You read the book and then you plant it.
and
you
then
water
flowers
it and
grow.
it grows.
What happens if you want to refer to page 3?
You
Again.
can't. It's
Buy
Buy
another
another
book.
one.
You go.
Ah,
High five for you,
You
Deb.
go look at the irises blooming outside.
Well, and it's in the beginning of the book, it says seeds of wisdom. And that's what these little books are meant to do.
I think it's incredible.
You could read them to a child, or it's called, it says Seeds of Wisdom Story Time for Grown-Up Women. And I wanted it to be, it needed to feel, I needed to feel something emotionally, physically, tactilely. And so I'm so proud of it. I feel like I've really pulled something together.
Yeah, and in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Short and fast, it seems.
Well, right. It's not.
Yeah.
It's been percolating a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Mandra,
Okay.
what's your walk around the
My
block?
project update. So I've been doing some research on the second step once my book is finished, doing some speaking engagements with hopefully medical professionals. I'm reading a book called Compassionate Healing, and it really brings the research together for what I'm going to be talking about, which is how important the patient-physician relationship is, and it backs up the theory that if you have a good relationship, it improves your outcome and the results of treatments. And there's a really neat story in there. They did a study where a bunch of people had the same surgery, and they were going to administer pain medicine to two groups in two different ways. And one group was going to get the pain medicine through the IV, but they weren't going to be told that, oh, you're getting this great medicine, it's going to make you feel better. It just was put in the IV. Another group got the same pain medicine and the same dosing, but somebody went in beforehand and said, we're going to get this pain medicine to you, and boy, you're going to feel so much better once we do it. And then when they administered it, a nurse went in and sat with the person and said, okay, here we go, we're going to do it now. And the group that had that human connection felt their pain was gone. They felt great. They're like, yeah, this stuff's really working. And the people who it just went in, same medicine, same dosing, went in without being told or without that human connection, the reports weren't like nothing really happened. They maybe felt a little bit better, but the other folks were definitely off the chart. So having that interaction with a great nurse or a great doctor really does change your experience
and outcome.
Yeah, and outcome.
Healing.
Yeah. Exactly.
And as Mandra was telling that story, did you notice she was touching me?
I did. I touched his
as she was telling the story about the part where they got the medicine with the human contact.
Yeah.
So basically, this person wrote a book telling the world how important your book is going to be.
And thank you to them.
Yes.
Because they've done all the research.
And proven why we need your book.
Right. They have all the results, which I kind of intuitively knew, but this is going to just help back it up and give it some more legitimacy.
Perfect.
Nice. So that's that. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Please check out the Writer's Block NH Facebook page and the Writer's Block podcast on your favorite podcast catcher. May you be inspired, feel empowered, and be well. Attention cigar smokers or even friends of a cigar smoker. If you're looking to relax with a nice premium cigar or looking for a great gift for a cigar smoker, this is the gift that keeps on giving. Our friends at twoguyscigars.com have created the Cigar of the Month Club. For just $19.99 per month, you or a friend will receive 4 different premium handmade cigars every month, and shipping and handling is included.
Contact twoguyscigars.com. That's the number 2, guyscigars.com, and go to the Cigar of the Month Club. You can stop anytime because there's no contract, but you won't. This is a tremendous deal for our listeners. Go to twoguyscigars.com. That's the number 2, guyscigars.com, and click the Cigar of the Month Club.
At the same time, if you want to learn more about the cigars you receive each month, you can smoke along with them on our own podcast called The Cigar Authority. Sit back, relax, and enjoy a nice premium cigar from our friends at twoguyscigars.com.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.